This week we're going to discuss the cinematic universe. These movies are near and dear to me because they started coming out right as my son was born, around 2003, something like that. And the movies kept coming out as he grew up, and they kind of ended as he became an adult. So when we went and watched Endgame, it was kind of bittersweet because those movies were ending at that point. And then, at that same time, you can look over and you can kind of think, hey, my child's childhood is kind of ending at the same time. So it was a real, actually kind of an emotional movie for me to watch, to be honest with you. But, in my opinion, these are some of the best movies ever made. And I can probably sit here and talk about them all night. But I'll open up the floor with you guys. How did you guys think it went? Starting out with Iron Man and progressing on from that. How did you guys think it went? Matt, what did you think?
I think when they started out really technically with the Hulk version with Edward Norton, and that was kind of the very first one because Robert Downey Jr. shows up at the end, like one of the post-scene credits there, talking about how he's got like this initiative going, and that was setting up the Avengers.
So you end
up going into Iron Man, which really kicked everything off. And after that, Marvel never looked back.
So I had a question about the Hulk. I can't remember exactly when the Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton come out, but the movie Hulk with Eric Bana in it didn't do half as well. It come out first. Was that considered part of the MCU?
No, that was Marvel had done a lot of standalone stuff like Ghost Rider, Hulk, stuff like that. So they really didn't know what they were doing because all the rights and stuff were so scattered, and they couldn't get the rights from Fox, which had the X-Men. So everything was kind of like off to its side. So when Kevin Feige came up and said, "Hey, we want to build a universe, and we want these movies to kind of connect into each other to lead up to one big final money shot, which was Endgame," that's what he had in plan.
And so the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton was considered basically the first out of that phase one or whatever.
Yeah, because it's in there because it also has got Thunderbolt Ross, General Ross in it, and he shows up throughout the Marvel U too. Except what's weird, he's not going to be in the new Captain America movie. Have you seen that, Dusty?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it. I know that, and if we're keeping it just to the movies, I know the TV shows have set up pretty much a Thunderbolts movie where you're going to have everybody show up. But I've read that they're planning like a World War Hulk, where you're going to have like Eric Bana's version of the Hulk playing the Maestro, and you're going to have Edward Norton's version of the Hulk playing one of the different variations, and then Mark Ruffalo playing another incarnation, all the different facets, each of them representing a facet of the personality or something like that. It's almost like they're borrowing a little bit. It almost sounds like from Old Man Logan a little bit.
Wasn't there 3 different Hulks? Wasn't there like a green? Well, I think in the comic books the Hulk was gray to begin with, right?
Yeah, he was.
And then they wasn't there a red one at some point, something like that.
Yeah, see, the Red Hulk is in the new Captain America trailer. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
now fill me in on. I haven't heard anything about a new Captain America movie. So
yeah, Captain America. So Sam Wilson is of course, obviously he took over after Captain America retired.
Yeah.
And he is the new Captain America, and the new movie that's coming out in February. It looks like a spy movie, just like Captain America Winter Soldier is. It's sort of like has that espionage type feel to it.
Yeah.
But Sam is having to go up against some governmental stuff, and there's some pretty bad stuff coming. So it's really going to show him in a really good light as far as becoming the new Captain America, which I'm excited about because I think he's a great character anyway. I thought he was one of actually the better characters that's come out. That was a secondary character in the Marvel U to become a lead.
Yeah, I think it'll be awesome. I hadn't heard anything about that. I kind of checked out when the Endgame was made. I kind of checked out because I didn't really know where they would go with the storyline after that. And everything I've watched since then, like none of that even comes close to the magic that the rest of those movies made. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the
I think
best one.
Deadpool and Wolverine is about to change a lot of stuff in the MCU.
Yeah, you may be right. And I've definitely got to go check that out this weekend. That's going to be an awesome movie.
The best one that I saw after Endgame was the third Spider-Man movie. They had three of them, right? It was the third one that had Doctor Strange to come in.
That was the best one post Endgame because I don't think it had Endgame.
I liked it. Of course, I've always been.
Yeah, had Endgame not been around, that Spider-Man movie to me would have been the best Marvel movie ever made.
I've always been more of a Spider-Man fan anyway. That's where the majority of my comic books were. Like, I remember you were into Batman a whole lot, and I had a lot of Superman comic books too, and that's DC. But I had like a ton of Spider-Man comic books, and I followed a lot of those storylines.
Well, I'll tell you how it started for me. I'll be honest with you. When these movies first started coming out, I didn't really pay much attention to them because, like I said, I just had a new kid and was getting used to being a father and stuff like that. But growing up, I was always into Batman and Superman. If I collected comics, it was Batman comics, Superman comics. I really never fooled with Marvel much, but of course, I knew who Iron Man was, I knew who Thor was, I knew who the Hulk was, but all this other, and everybody knows who Captain America is, but I didn't really know Captain America's backstory. So, I forget what year Iron Man came out, but then when that movie came out and I watched it and I'm like, man, that was pretty awesome,
2008, wasn't it?
Was it 2008? I knew Jace was young. So, I watched it and I was like, man, that was awesome. Then what came after Iron Man, Matt? Do you know?
Because you had Iron Man.
Captain America, didn't you?
Then you had Captain America, then you had Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Because that set up the core three. Because then you had Iron Man 2 that came, I think, right after Thor, and that introduced Black Widow, who I'm going to tell you something. They really screwed Johansson over in Black Widow in that movie, their standalone, because that was released during COVID, and it got such a bad release. But that movie, it's good for what it is, but that character really deserved better.
Well, I can't believe they kicked her off like they did. I mean, she was one of the main characters. That's still one of the. And then they come out with after she's dead, they came out with a movie that shows her backstory. I'm like, would y'all just need to put a movie out and you grab one from the shelf and put it out?
Yeah, I didn't understand that. She was already dead, and then they did the backstory movie.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Go ahead, Dusty.
I was going to say, speaking just on Scarlett Johansson, I mean, they. She sued the snot out of Disney and won.
Yeah.
Because what they did is they released Black Widow on streaming the same day it came out in theaters, and part of the money she was supposed to get is revenue off of ticket sales. So, because everybody said, well, I'm not going to drive to a theater and sit, and do distance seating and that kind of stuff. If I can sit at home, I've already got Disney Plus anyway. Sit at home and watch it in the comfort of my own living room. And she went irate. That's why now Disney has to let every movie they release have a 45-day theatrical run before they can bring it to streaming. They have to give it at least 45 days in the theater to make some money before they can they can bring it to streaming.
That makes sense. How are the actors going to make any money if it goes straight to video like that, or streaming, or whatever you call it now?
They paid her. They only paid her $25 million up front, but I mean, still.
Hey, never mind.
She finally getting by on $25 million.
I mean, how are you supposed to make it on $25 million?
She's got to support Colin Jost's comedy, so she's got to support her husband Colin.
She definitely ain't buffing boats at Sea Ray. I can promise you that.
She's buffing
Well,
something.
she's buffing. No, never mind, Dusty.
But I think
She's
I think
buffing
one of the
something.
best things about when you look at the MCU and you look at all the characters from the first three phases, I don't really care about anything after Endgame except
Me
for
neither.
Spider-Man and then Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, because those two movies are really good. They started relying on TV show tie-ins and stuff because I think Marvel got into that weird thing where comic books in the 90s. Daniel had talked about Spider-Man. Well, you had Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, all this other stuff. So to get the whole story, you would have to buy all these different comic books from different titles that you never read just to get the full story. And it's kind of how that's what they started doing when they started putting shows on Disney Plus. You had to watch Hawkeye to maybe figure out what was going on here, or watch Loki to figure out what's going on here. And I don't think that's fair because you go to the movies to watch a movie, not have to do a bunch of homework.
Exactly. Disney is destroying literally everything they get their hands on, man, because they bought Star Wars and they are literally tearing that universe apart, man. I don't know, you guys may not be big fans of Star Wars, but I am. And everybody wanted more movies. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful that they've made more content, and we still get to go to the movies and watch Star Wars movies. But dude, they are just destroying Star Wars. They're adding all this woke crap into them, and they're not even going to call the light side and dark side that anymore because they said this is 2024. We got to call it something else besides light and dark. That's racist. It's pathetic what they're doing to Star Wars. They're ruining it.
Well, Disney's doing what they've always done. They find something that everybody likes, and then they just shove it down your throat until you're sick of it. And then they go, oh, these people like this now, so we're going to run this down their throat.
Yep, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it sucks it sucks. You go watch a movie and it's so self-referential. You've got, like you said, you got to sit back and you got to go back and watch 2 seasons of a TV show just to know what they're talking about.
Yep,
and that's going to be.
Which is why I almost had a problem with the second Doctor Strange, because he's dealing with Wanda from WandaVision. And there's a lot of fallout in WandaVision that he's dealing with in Multiverse of Madness. So if you don't really know what's going on in WandaVision, you're not going to know why she's off the rails in Doctor Strange 2.
Right, and like the new Deadpool and Wolverine, it's going to be referencing the TVA. The time authority. So there's a Loki tie-in. So if you don't know, so you're going to have a casual fan go, why in the world is Owen Wilson in the Marvel universe?
Right. So you got to kind of know what the Loki show is about. Mm-hmm. But Kevin Feige said you're not going to have to do a whole lot of homework in this movie to get it. So, but this movie is about Deadpool and Wolverine is about them actually cleaning up the timelines that they've screwed up in real life.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to see a bunch of cameos from other past actors who've done other characters from the last 25 years, and they're going to be dealing with all that to try to get all the timelines back. Because Avengers 5 is coming.
Because what's coming?
Avengers 5.
Yeah.
As long as they go back and kill the original Fantastic Four, both those movies.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question.
Let me ask you guys this though. You look at Phase 3, and I think Phase 3 is probably the best storytelling I've ever seen in a film history, because it was so long and it was so good and the payoff was great. If Robert Downey Jr. comes back, does that diminish Endgame?
I don't think so, because if they follow along with the comic books, he comes back, but really not as himself. He comes back as a like an AI type of thing. If they follow along with, I guess one of the storylines in the comic books. But
so basically, does he become Jarvis then?
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. He was supposed to go in Riri's new suit, because she was supposed to take over as the new Iron Man. She's going to be Ironheart.
Yeah.
And he was going to be the AI. But I'm talking about just as it is now. is just in the MCU. Take out what they did in the comic books. If they go back in Wolverine, Deadpool, Wolverine, and redo that where he doesn't die, does that make the Endgame movie irrelevant to you guys?
So I don't see how they could do that, because didn't Doctor Strange sit there for hours and hours and go over so many billions of scenarios, and that
there was like 14,600,000 and something possibilities where they beat Thanos, and that was the only way.
And the only way was one out of them 14 billion or something. So how is Wolverine and Deadpool going to come and fix that and still have the same outcome? If they bring him back, then that means Thanos wins.
That's what I'm saying, because if they bring him back, Thanos has to come back.
Well, see, Robert Downey Jr. came out on Howard Stern a while back and said that he was open to coming back to play him. A few years ago, Dusty, if you remember, RDJ said he was done. He was hanging up his jersey.
Yeah, he was done. Yeah, he wanted to focus on independent projects, stuff like the Judge that he did with
Duvall.
With Duvall, and he wanted to. There was talk about him trying to get Jude Law to do one more Sherlock Holmes movie before they both got too old. I could see them bringing him back. I think it would cheapen Endgame a little bit to bring him back in the flesh. But to do him as a voiceover, whether he shows up with whatever they do with Tom Holland, if he continues on, or if they decide to write him off and bring in a new Spider-Man, I've heard both.
Bring back Tobey Maguire.
Or they do it him with Ironheart, which they tried to introduce her in the second Black Panther movie, and then not a lot of people saw it because, there was no Chadwick Boseman. And they didn't go to the direction with that I thought they were. I would have gone, but.
And that's the one thing about
who am I?
I think they've got it. I think the storytelling was so good. I don't think you can beat. They'll never be able to replicate what they did in the first three phases, because not only did you cast every villain and every hero well, you told a great story too. Right. So you're never going to beat the first three phases. I don't really watch anything outside of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange 2. I didn't like Black Panther 2. I didn't like what was that newer one? The Eternals. I didn't like that. It was garbage. That sucked. I just don't think so. Let me ask you this though: do you think, looking back at the first three phases, because Tony Stark sacrifices himself for the greater good, and that's exactly where his story arc was going from Iron Man 1 to Endgame. It was him learning how to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Do you see Thanos as a villain, or do you see him as somebody that was trying to do the right thing through the cosmos by getting rid of half the population where everything could flourish again?
Hey, I got this. Hey, here's how I see it. And I've said this ever since I've seen those movies. Look, Thanos was misunderstood, man. He was willing to do what he thought it was right, and didn't matter. Like, the greater good was what was most important to him. He even sacrificed his daughter for the greater good. Tell me somebody else that would do that. So, at the end of the day, I think Thanos was just misunderstood. Yeah, does he seem like a bad guy? Yeah, he seems like a bad guy. He's killing half everybody. But in his mind, he's not doing it to be mean. He's doing it because he wants the universe to survive.
All right, now let's change the word Thanos to Adolf. And let's hear how ridiculous that sounds. Because in his mind, he thought, I'm doing Germany a great service. But he was not.
Well, the difference between Thanos and Adolf Hitler is Thanos didn't line people up in concentration camps and starve them to death and then kill them. He gave everybody a swift, painless death.
Yeah, well, that's still death, man.
I can't see what you're saying. And when you put it that way, maybe Thanos was a big jerk. But, if I'm looking at it.
I don't know about. So here's my question: then does Thanos still snap his fingers if he knows that he's going to be part of that disappears?
Yes.
Well, he never was because he wielded the Infinity Gauntlet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you take off his out, and he's part of that 50-50 just like everybody else is, does he still snap his fingers knowing that he could disappear?
Well, he
Why
wouldn't
wouldn't
work
for that
because he
50?
could snap his fingers without the Infinity Gauntlet. Wouldn't matter. He'd
So
have
if he runs the gauntlet, then he's exempt from the snap, right?
So that's what I'm saying. You take the gauntlet off, okay, and say he can have somebody else snap the finger of the gauntlet or whatever, and he knows that he's going to die in the 50% that dies. Does he still do it?
I don't know.
In my mind, I think he does.
How big of an introvert do you have to be to want everything in the universe dead but you? Like, why? Why would you want that?
I don't think he wanted it to be dead. I think he wanted the universe to continue.
Well, if
because
you look at Endgame after the snap, you look at how much better everything was. The rivers were cleaner, the oceans were cleaner, air was cleaner, because you didn't have 50%. 50% of the population was gone.
I don't remember it depicting that though.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you're saying.
When he's sitting on when he's back on that planet and he's chilling on the porch and the birds are chirping and he's eating his little bowl of porridge before they bust in and
before they bust in and gank him.
And so you got Captain America who's talking to Black Widow, and he was talking about how the Hudson River's clean. He saw dolphins swimming in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean that's cool and everything, but I remember the 1800s. Of course, I wasn't there, but I read about it. But so the 1800s, there was nowhere near the population we have now, and they were dying from dysentery.
That's because they're taking their poop and dumping it in the water they drink. They were stupid.
But people are still stupid. Look, there are more stupid people now because there's more people than there was back then. So you don't think that nobody's going to take a dump in the Hudson River?
Here's the thing: you're dipping into a history lesson. We're talking about the Marvel movie.
Yeah, but no. See, no, because first we went into history because Dr. Phillips here went into psychology. Is he still going to snap his fingers? So if he's allowed to talk psychology, I can speak about history.
Damn it, Corky! Look what you've done.
I understand.
But it's kind of irrelevant to what we're talking about.
Dr. Phillips understands where Dr. Hughes is coming from. I do understand.
Professor Hughes.
Professor Hughes.
Damn right.
I still say, just for the sake of the conversation, I still say Thanos is a villain. I say Thanos is a villain.
And since I'm looking at it from Travis's eyes, he probably is a villain. But
Dusty, what do you think?
Well, no, it wasn't just population; it was half of all life, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was half of.
He didn't half the population
everywhere,
So he didn't just half, the humanoid, the sentient life. He halved all the plants, all the bugs, all the animals. So he not just halved the people. It wasn't like, okay, you've got 10 cans of food and 10 people. He didn't just take 5 people out of it. He took 5 people and 5 cans. So it didn't really stretch it didn't really stretch the resources any farther because he took half of the available resources. So half the plants got dusted, half the cows got dusted, half the whatever edible animals or edible plants you've got.
So that
all got dusted too. So you still got the same problem.
That means he didn't do crap.
Yeah,
no, he didn't.
He just killed a bunch of people for nothing.
Daddy still got to eat, and if I want to have 2 cans, somebody's gonna be short a can.
That's what I'm saying. But if it had specified, it was, and they leave it kind of vague because when Iron Man snapped, all he snapped was Thanos and his army, because that was in his mind. That was in the thought of whoever's doing the snapping.
Well, now hold up. Let's talk about this for a minute. Now I know what you're saying. But when he snapped, I never seen on screen no tree vanish, no plants vanish. You sure he just didn't snap to to all sentient beings, half of them.
We don't know because because it kept saying was half of all life.
Yeah, that was repeated quite a bit because
and then even sentient being kind of gives you a little bit of wiggle room. If we want to talk a little bit about reference back to last week, what if you've got a bunch of equal to a bunch of Neanderthals on a planet that are they sentient? What so it kind of gave to me. It kind of left a loophole. Because if it's half of all life, then he's having the resources too.
Yeah, you really ain't done crap. If that's how it goes.
All right. So
he went through all that and didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So let's take it away from Thanos and start talking about how this all came about. Because to me, the relationship between Cap and Bucky was the thing that broke the Avengers. And when that happened, you got to Endgame. So how important do you think that moment of Cap protecting Bucky in Captain America: Civil War, do you think that was the most important part in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, Corky?
Well, it divided the Avengers, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was more than that, though.
I can't remember how that went down. I've only seen that one like once. And I know Iron Man was like, we got to take this fool out. And Cap's like, nah, it's my boy. You know what I'm saying? Is that how it went?
Well, you had that. What happened is that if you watch Captain America at the first part of Civil War, Scarlet Witch makes a mistake and it costs a bunch of innocent people their lives. Well, the federal government wants to crack down on them and start saying, hey, we're going to call the shots. We're going to let you go into places we decide you can go into.
You can't just be your own thing. You got to be regulated by us.
So that divided them a little bit. And then you had the explosion where it killed Black Panther's dad. Because then you think Bucky's involved, and then Cap's got to try to take care of Bucky with everybody in the world looking for him. And then it comes out that Bucky was the one that killed Iron Man's parents.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He was an assassin anyway.
So it becomes a chain of events from the Winter Soldier, Captain America 2, and then Civil War really ratchets it up. And then after Civil War, there's no more Avengers. To me, that's like a watershed moment in that whole first three phases. If you don't do that, you don't get Endgame.
And so how did they end up coming back together? So, I know they were doing battle with Thanos in Infinity Wars.
No, they didn't get back together until toward the end of Endgame, because in Infinity War they were still divided.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot all about that. It's been a few minutes since I've watched those. Which has to be a pivotal moment, because now Captain America's crew, they were the crew that were kind of being the vigilantes, right?
Yeah, they were the ones that were, because you had Scarlet Witch, you had Vision, you had Sam Wilson, and you had Captain America, who were doing like a heroes for hire type situation. And then you had Stark and a couple, Hawkeye, who had retired. Black Widow was still with him. They were kind of still doing like the government stuff. So I think if you take out, that's why I've said that the Winter Soldier is probably the most important character in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. What do you think, Dust? Do you think I'm wrong there?
No, because I think what you saw was you saw the incorruptible. You saw Captain America, who's, he's calling the other guys out on language over the comms, because they're dropping, garden cuss words. But you see him look people right in the face and lie to them.
Mm-hmm.
You saw this, because Captain America is, as far as what he represents, he's Marvel's version of Superman. He's supposed to be this paragon of truth, justice, the American way, incorruptible, doesn't lie, doesn't cheat, doesn't steal. and he flat out lies and he sacrifices. I think he's really the out of all of it. Um, I think he actually not just ticked him off, because a lot of people have ticked off Tony Stark, but I think he actually hurt him, because I think genuinely that Tony Stark saw Captain America as a friend, and he said that. He said when Captain America said he's my friend, and Tony Stark said so was I.
Yeah, that was deep.
We're going to put a suit armor around the world. We were going to do that together. And, kudos not just for the casting, because, I mean, Robert Downey Jr., you ever saw Tony Stark in a comic, that's Robert Downey Jr. But right. Iron Man was never really an A-lister. He was always kind of a B-tier superhero in Marvel, but it was Tony Stark it was the main character because he was financing it. But then they kind of made him really one of the focus point, and sort of the linchpin for everything that came after.
But you go back when I say that Captain America: The Winter Soldier was an important movie in the MCU first three phases, Avengers: Age of Ultron was probably just as important, because you started seeing some cracks in it when Banner and Stark went behind everybody's back to create Ultron from Jarvis's AI.
Mm-hmm.
Telling them.
Yeah. And I would have loved to them to have done it where you actually saw a younger Hank Pym in there, because I think in the comics it was Pym that was a part of the Ultron as well.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So let me ask you guys this, Corey. I'll start with you. Daniel, you can jump in, Travis, too. What do you think about like the smaller tier characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Black Widow? What do you think about those guys? Where do they land with you?
Guardians of the Galaxy is actually probably one of my favorite, parts of the Avenger universe, man, because I love every one of those characters, dude. And like Star-Lord and all those guys, I could say those standalone movies, I could watch them all the time, because I love every character on there, man. Even what was it? Part 3, this is the last one that just came out.
Yeah.
You guys seen that one?
Yeah.
Where it goes back and does the little guy's, his past and how he's back there in the cage and stuff. Man, I ain't gonna lie, I teared up watching that.
I love Rocket Raccoon.
But no, I love those. I like Ant-Man. I'm not a big fan of Captain Marvel. Who else is there out there?
Black Panther.
I'm not a fan of Black Panther.
I think Black Panther was a great secondary character, like he was used in Civil War. But I think him headlining his own movie, I think it was a little bit much. Just like with Captain Marvel, I thought her headlining her own movie was a little much.
And Captain Marvel could have been a great character, man. She was supposed to be the equivalent of Superman in the Marvel universe, because she's supposed to have every power Superman's got. But man, they dropped the ball on that movie, man. It just wasn't good.
So what happened with it? Well, I've seen it, but do you think that it was just how they wrote the character, or do you think that
I think
Brie
they just
Larson didn't do a good job, or like what?
I think she done as best job as she could have done, but they just did the storyline and the writing just wasn't good for it, man. To me, I just didn't like the storyline they gave her. She's awesome.
I didn't much care for it. I didn't much care for that movie. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love Guardians.
I really liked Ant-Man a whole lot better than I thought I would. Black Panther is just kind of hit and miss for me. Yeah, some of them other smaller ones, they were just kind of under the radar. I followed along with the main 3 phases more. I mean, they had some good movies after Endgame that come out, like that Chain C or whatever with the rings or whatever. I thought was a good movie. I didn't even, really relate it with the Marvel universe. I just thought it was a standalone movie. I mean, I understand how it connected and all that, but I just watched that as its own movie. You know what I mean? I
Which one
wasn't
was
trying to. It's called Chang Si or Chang Sung or something.
is that Asian one? I've not seen
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
it was. I mean, it was a good movie. It had good effects in it and everything. Well acted. But as far as it linking with the Marvel universe and all that, I wasn't looking for it to link. If that makes any sense. Like when I was watching all the Avengers movies and when I was watching the Thor movies and all that, I was trying to link all that stuff up. I was invested in the whole storyline instead of just the one movie. And
Right.
so when I was watching all these one-offs and stuff, I wasn't trying to do that anymore. I was just watching it as its own movie.
Right. Hey, you know who my favorite character is in the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Rocket.
Nebula.
Nebula?
Yeah, Nebula. Thanos' other daughter.
No,
I
I
think
like
her
Drax. Drax is funny.
Drax. Every character in Guardian of the Galaxy is awesome, man. But Nebula, her backstory being Thanos' other daughter, and she was always tortured and stuff like that. And she's like the Darth Vader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, man. She's awesome. But yeah, you got
Hey.
Drax, you got Star-Lord. What was his girl's name? What was her name?
Gamora.
I got a figure of her sitting right here on my shelf. I can't think of her name now.
Gamora.
Yeah, Gamora. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
it don't get no better than the end of the first Guardians movie, and it's like got the big music that's going, and it's kind of, they just save the world or whatever, and then that meteor come and hit Mantis, and Drax goes after it's already hit her, knocked her off the screen. He goes, Mantis, look out!
Hey,
Like
what's the
3
deal with that
seconds too
dog?
late. What?
What's the deal with that dog? You guys, what was that dog? The dog with the spacesuit on? You guys know anything about that?
Cosmo.
Yeah. What is
Yeah.
Dusty?
That Matt probably knows too, but that was supposed to be the joke of Russia actually launched a stray dog into space to see if humans would be able to survive. So the
Oh.
joke is that the dog in real life actually died. It died going up because it couldn't handle the pressure.
Was that
Oh.
But the joke that it was a stray dog, but the joke that the dog got picked up by the collector and didn't actually die, and Russia made up the story and that kind of stuff. If I remember right.
The sweet
Yeah.
jabbing old Russians. All right, I got you.
Yeah.
That's
So
But
when we're talking about casting, who do you think was the best casted main character in the MCU?
Robert
That
Downey
relates to the comic book or
No,
just
I'm
in
talking
general?
about just the MCU. Forget the comic books. Just MCU.
Robert Downey Jr.
I think so.
Of course,
I think-
man, I think they're all perfect. Just I'm gonna be straight with you. I think they're all perfect.
Yeah.
I do too, because I mean, Downey's my favorite because I think he was cast very well. But if you look at Hemsworth, you look at Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, Johansson, Black Widow. I mean, everyone they didn't do a bad job casting anybody because I can't
Yeah.
see anybody playing those characters now. There's no way.
Dude, even Hemsworth is coming out with a live action He-Man movie here pretty
Yeah.
soon. Dude, he's still Thor to me. He's just in a He-Man costume now.
But wasn't he working on a Hulk Hogan biopic or something before?
God, I hope so. That's going to be great if he did. That dude is hilarious.
Just a little fact here before I was brutally assaulted about my history lesson.
No, we love your history
Now,
lesson.
hold on now.
That wasn't an assault at all.
Hold on. Now, just to tell everybody and show everybody I'm not a Nazi. Okay. Captain America.
Well, we didn't think that before, but now.
Well,
You
the
trying to
number
hide
one
something, Trav?
Listen, the number one issue of Captain America ever. You know who he fought? Adolf
Hitler.
Yeah.
You're right.
So Hitler is part of the Marvel universe too. So see, I wasn't off topic. I was
No,
on
no.
topic.
No, Captain America, that was his whole original storyline was fighting the Nazis, man, big time. That's why he was created, was to fight the Nazis.
Yeah.
100%.
See, so I wasn't off topic. you go to brutally assault a man
Oh.
about talking about some history.
I know that's your job on this podcast is to talk history.
Got death threats in my inbox. Hey, you can't talk about Adolf Hitler in the Marvel universe.
You're a Nazi lover.
Yeah, blow.
Bet
The
you
movie was
want
made in
to vote for
1941.
Kamala Harris.
No.
I mean, they
Listen,
even they reference him in the
I'll tell you
first.
what, if Kamala Harris was running in an election against Adolf Hitler, I'm voting Adolf, man. I'm not voting for that kid.
I don't know which one would be worse.
Man, besides Endgame, like Captain America was my favorite Marvel movie.
Oh, absolutely. Well, now the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians was good, but
I mean, Captain America. I didn't know Captain. Because see, I didn't know. I never read these comics coming up.
I didn't either, and that's why I think that I like it so much, is because it was like, oh man, I didn't know that, and then I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I had to go back and like retro watch these things because everybody knew who Captain America was, right? But I didn't know he was created back in the 40s to fight Adolf Hitler, and then he got frozen in ice for like 60 years.
Right.
You know, I didn't know none of that, and dude, that's a freaking awesome storyline, man.
Yeah,
And
they should have thawed that dude out in the 60s when we was in Vietnam. Sent him off in Ho Chi Minh City, and we'd have been done.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
They just kept him froze up, you know.
Well, now, did they just keep him frozen, Matt? You may know, or Dusty, or did they just find him one day or something like that?
What happened was we're talking about the Marvel
right.
Cinematic Universe. So the reason they found him is because they was looking for the Tesseract.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Down when in that plane, it went down into the ice, right, Dusty?
Yeah.
And that's the only reason they found Cap was because they were looking for the Tesseract, because Red Skull had that was the crux of the whole Captain America 1 movie, was because Red Skull had the Tesseract.
Since Disney owns all this stuff, wouldn't they technically keep Captain America in the same warehouse that they put the Ark of the Covenant from the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
It's in there, I'm sure.
Because that was the government hide spot, right?
Yeah.
So
who's the best villain? Who's your favorite villain in the MCU? Now it can go beyond the first 3 phases. So who's your favorite villain?
I got this. I'll take it first. Just because I think we're on the cusp of this happening in real life, I'm going to say Ultron.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's my favorite.
I don't think you realize how close we are to that actually happening. 20, 30 years maybe. But yeah, I could very well see Ultron happening. Yeah.
Ultron
I could have done without James Spader.
Yeah, James Spader with James Spader's creepy ass voice as Ultron. That you couldn't have had. That's where it goes back to casting. You couldn't have casted anybody else to have that creepy robotic voice other than James Spader.
Well, and he was right at the peak. It was before Blacklist jumped the shark and everything else. So he was, and Spader's always been like that. Even when he was trying to be nice, he was creepy. Even Boston Public, he was creepy.
Robert California was Ultron.
You could have gotten a better voice actor to do Ultron. There's no way. But yeah, Ultron's my favorite too. What about you, Daniel?
I really like the Red Skull, and it's because I didn't know very much about that particular character before, and that was really the first Marvel movie that I watched, I guess, probably, other than the Incredible Hulk. But I like the whole vibe of it, man. I like the fact that it was in World War II. I like the fact that Red Skull was looking for the Tesseract, or he even had it, I guess. But it was just more interesting to me. I just thought he was a cool villain, and then he ended up being like the gatekeeper of the final stone or something.
Yeah, on the Volmir, he was the keeper of the Soul Stone.
So was that like his punishment or something?
Yeah, that's just where it banished him, because the power sent him to that dimension.
Okay, well, and see, I just thought all that was cool.
Yeah.
I really like that whole character. Plus, I like the guy that played him. He was the
Matrix, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the same dude in Lord of the Rings, and he was in the Matrix. He's been in a lot of good movies.
Yeah. What about you, Dusty?
I've got a little bit of a tie.
Ooh.
I'm digging a little bit more into the TV side of things, but Baron Zemo.
Who's that?
Baron Zemo was sort of the secondary big bad in Age of Ultron because of the Sokovia Accords, which is where they wanted them all to register and that kind of stuff. But he's not. I don't know if he's very 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 dark gray, but he's still in that gray area. He's not like a full blown big bad, but he's not. He has no powers or anything like that. He's super smart and super rich.
Kind of looks like a
he does-
purple Deadpool.
Well, you remember Baron Zemo? He was the one that was unlocking all the Winter Soldiers up in the Arctic, where Captain America was trying to go with Bucky to stop it, and that's where the big final battle came. Because that was Baron Zemo's problem. Was his issue was he wanted to break the Avengers for costing his family their life in Age of Ultron.
But as far as the we were talking about villains that they were probably right. I've got to go with Killmonger. I think. I mean, because ultimately he was right.
Yeah.
You've got this. You've got the Wakanda, which is this technologically super advanced civilization. I mean, they're living in the year 3000 with everything, and he wanted to share that with the rest of the world. He wanted to militarize a lot of the inner cities and that kind of stuff, but ultimately that's exactly what they ended up doing. They ended up sharing their technology with the world and bringing everybody's standard of living up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I like Michael B. Jordan. I think he's very underrated as an actor.
Yeah, he played that character well.
Yeah. Travis, what about you?
All right, as far as the movies go, and he's kind of toward the end there, or he kind of goes back and forth. I like Loki. He's more relatable to me. But
Loki's good.
But as far as the comic books go in Marvel, I got a tie between Electro and Juggernaut.
Oh, Juggernaut.
Yeah, man. I like Juggernaut because
they still haven't done him justice in the movies.
It wasn't really that he had special powers, man. He's just real strong. He found out what he was good at, and that's how he beat people. He run through buildings and stuff.
Who was the other guy?
Electro. He was just cool.
Electro was Spider-Man, right? He was Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like his main one for a while there. He green and yellow.
Yeah, he looks cool.
He looked like he'd be the mascot for the Oakland Athletics or something.
Yeah.
Running around.
I've got several comic books with Electro in it.
My favorite all-time villain, and I mean, if you're talking Marvel, I mean, I guess you could call him part of Marvel MCU now, but is Green Goblin. You're not going to have anybody better than Willem Dafoe play that character.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a creep and everything, too. Even in Platoon, he was the good guy. He was still creepy. It's like the other guy Dusty was talking about. We got to take this hill up there. He's like a cracked out Jack Nicholson, man.
Put your mouth on this.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
And Willem Dafoe is a great actor, though, man. He's been in some awesome movies.
Yeah, he's still
favorite secondary character. Mine would be Hawkeye, because I think Hawkeye, he's just really damn good at shooting. So that's what I like about Hawkeye, because I think he made the point in what was it, Age of Ultron, where he says, "None of this makes sense. I'm just a guy with arrows, and none of this makes sense."
That was the first Avengers. He's like, "I've got a god over here, a billionaire in a $1 million suit, and I've got a weapon from the Paleolithic era."
Yeah.
But he used what he was good with. He's just like Juggernaut. He found out what he was good at, and that's what he used it for.
I would have loved the
most human of all the Avengers, because he was, I mean, if you look at Black Widow, I mean, she had gotten programmed with Russia to become an assassin, so she almost had no moral compass. But I think Hawkeye was probably the most human of them all.
I wish they had touched a little bit more on his backstory, where he was an orphan. He was taken in by the circus, and they taught him all the trick shooting and stuff, and found out he was just abnormally good at this. Like he didn't have he didn't have like an X gene. He didn't have any special powers. He was just really, really good. Sort of like how they introduced Wade Wilson initially, where he just had this almost superhuman but still human hand-eye coordination, with the whole swords and chopping the bullets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a DC question, okay? And I don't know. Shut up. So what's in the new Joker movies? What's his name? What's his real name?
Arthur Fleck.
Okay. Yeah. So who is the real Joker? Arthur Fleck or Jack Napier?
See, that's the thing with it. They did a comic. They did a comic a few years ago called, I think it was called The Three Jokers, and it tried to explore, because there's been so many different Jokers, and I think the gist of it is there's not one guy.
Yeah, see, I don't like all that, man. That's why I can't follow a lot of these movies, is because, like, I find if an actor does good in a character, okay, well, I follow that actor. You know what I'm saying? And then they just straight up change him. Now I'm not interested. You know what I mean?
That was my problem.
It's just like in Iron Man. Who was his helper there? Was that like Captain Freedom or something? What was his name?
God, War Machine.
Okay.
War Machine, yeah.
Like
Captain Freedom.
Well, I don't know what his name is.
That's the Running Man.
Hey,
that was Jesse Ventura and the Running Man.
That's coming out next, son. Yeah, and that took place in 2012. Anyway, look,
that's going to be Trump in a suit.
Yeah,
that's a sexual tyrannosaurus.
Saw him in Pennsylvania. No, so you had Don Cheadle, and then you had the other dude that played him. You know what I'm saying? When they start switching and interchanging the real people playing these characters, that's when I start losing interest.
So what happened?
Did you like Don Cheadle better? Did you like?
Yeah. I knew what happened with it, but I mean, still, just write him out the story. Just write him out.
See, they done. Who was the guy that played War Machine? Well, he wasn't Terrence, whatever his name.
Howard.
Terrence Howard.
Oh, which one was Anthony Mackie then?
He's Captain America now.
He was Papa Doc at 8 Mile.
Yeah, he was Falcon.
Man, that's what I'm saying, man.
Falcon, that's who.
Bro.
Oh yeah, okay.
Just pick somebody and pay him back the truck up to him, give him the money, and just to keep the guy. If you want me to buy a ticket, keep the guy.
Well, see, Terrence Howard had signed on for 3 movies.
Yeah,
and they'd offered him $4 million or something like that to do these 3 movies. Well, that was when everything was just kicking off. They didn't know these movies were going to do what they did.
Yeah.
So he does the first movie, and then he had this old gal come out and said that, he, touched her in inappropriate ways or whatever. And so he shows up.
I'm Captain Freedom. I can touch you wherever I want.
Basically, he shows up to work one day, and he's no longer in that role. Well, he is the reason that Robert Downey Jr. got cast as Iron Man. He was already cast, and before these movies started filming, for Iron Man 1 started filming, Robert Downey Jr. was coming out of prison, and he wanted to audition. They wouldn't audition Robert Downey Jr. So he goes to whoever it was and says, "Look, give him a chance." He said, "Because I know I've been down on my luck." He said, "Give him a chance." And they're like, "Well, it's something about they couldn't insure him or something like that because he had just come out of prison." He said, "Look, take $1 million of the money you're going to pay me, insure Robert Downey Jr. with that $1 million, and give him an audition. However it went, I don't know the work ins and out of it. I just heard an interview he done." So Robert Downey Jr. gets the job. They do the movie, and then that old girl comes out with these accusations. They kick him to the curb. And he calls up Robert Downey Jr. and says, "Hey, man, I need you to help me out like I helped you out. And he like went 6 months, or went like 3 years, and Robert Downey Jr. wouldn't even answer the phone while they're making all these movies. Everybody's blowing up, whatever. So dude basically gets canceled out of Hollywood. Like 5 years later, he gets that show. What was it called?
I didn't touch that girl.com.
Yeah. Well, all that come out, it was false. All that come out, it was false. She lost in court, whatever.
Yeah.
But they come out. He come out with another show that blew up. I forget what it was called. So he runs into Robert Downey Jr. at a party, up in Hollywood, and he said, "All Robert Downey Jr. would just looked at him and said, well, I'm glad it worked out for you in the end." But he done this interview on one of Joe Rogan's podcasts, and how they done him and how they recast that role was crap because he was already signed to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just write them out the show. You know what I'm saying? Make it to where dude had a charge threw up on him in the movie, something. Just
I hate it when they just flat out recast characters. You just can't.
I mean, there's been just like Henry Cavill. Okay, now it's DC again.
Listen, they done him dirty too, son.
And listen, I thought he was the best Superman. Now, growing up, Christopher Reeves was Superman, but if they were able to bring him back to life and get to where his legs could work, if they bring him back to life, I'm sure they could unparalyze him. Either way, if they did that, I'd still want Henry Cavill to be Superman. You know what I'm saying?
He's Superman to me too, but do you know what they done to him?
That's what I'm saying though. Is these producers, their egos must be out of the world, man. I mean, it's stupid. Because there's got to be more people like me that follow the actors. You see them as that character.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why you follow and watch part 2 or part 3, or when they start combining them, all together and all that.
Well, so that's the problem.
Changing them.
That's the problem everybody's had with the DC universe, because they've tried to come out with their whole, movies like the Avengers, what do they call them, Justice League and all that crap.
And they've had 14 Batman.
But they keep rebooting everything and starting all over. They won't just do something, do it good, and keep going with it. They want to be like, all right, we sucked on that one. Let's retry it over here.
That's what I'm saying. Now I like Michael Keaton as Batman. I thought, well, there'll never be another great Batman. Now, I liked Christian Bale's version too, even though he sounded like the guy from the Barbie song. Come on, Barbie, let's go. You know what I'm saying? He sounded like he'd be hanging out at the park in a van with a handful of candy and a puppy. But and then I liked him too. He was a different version of Batman. But then Ben Affleck come along, and I thought, damn man, they finally found him. He's going to be Batman forever. There's no way. And they run him out.
Yeah. I didn't like that.
Good.
I didn't like that Batman.
The problem is it's Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers is so protective of Batman. They start telling the directors what they got to start doing. And then when they write the scripts, the studio says, no, we can't do this. So that's why I think get settled on Batman, because Warner Brothers can't figure it out. Now, what Warner Brothers does well is the animation movies.
Yeah.
Because the shows and the animation, they do that perfect, but they can't do the big feature movies for some reason.
Man, they got the characters. They got Superman, they got Batman, they got Joker, they got Wonder Woman, Aquaman. Who else? They got the Flash. They could make an awesome set of movies.
But that's what Gotham. But that's
now,
what Gotham used to be on Fox. Gotham had this whole thing set up where it was like a Batman universe. And I was like, holy God, they figured it out. And they still didn't figure it out.
I know it.
But here's the cardinal sin that they committed. Is Ben Affleck was Batman, but he was Daredevil first. You can't have one person in real life portraying a superhero, two different ones.
That's what I was about to say. You had that going on, then you had Wade Wilson, and you had
Jack Nicholson be the Hobgoblin now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you another way they messed up, because let me tell you something. Batman is cool, and I love Batman, but Batman is a man, okay? He's just a rich guy with a bunch of gadgets on him. And there's no way Batman can beat up Superman. I'm sorry. It ain't going to happen,
He's the gadgets. He's smart. He's just
Well,
smart.
Well, Superman is the most, he
He's
gets
the
power.
most powerful man in the universe.
Batman can't. I mean, come on, he can't beat up Superman. Let's
Not
be real
brass
about it,
knuckles.
huh?
I don't know,
Not
man.
brass knuckles.
Well,
I
here's the
don't-
thing,
hey,
though.
listen,
You know what
I
sucks?
don't know. That little green rock made him pretty sick in the movies, man.
Well,
You know why Kryptonite came out? Do you know why Kryptonite even got started? Is because during the
Radio days.
show, the guy that voiced Superman had to go like on medical leave or something. So they had to come up with this thing to put Superman out of commission. They come up with Kryptonite.
But you know what sucks about watching Justice League or whenever Batman fought Superman? They flip off to these guys swimming in the ocean and they pick up some kryptonite. How did they know that the kryptonite was going to hurt Superman? They never explained that in the movie. I mean, we all know because we grew up reading the comics, but in
Maybe
the
they read
movie,
them too.
maybe they did. But in the movie, they swim down in the ocean and grab this green rock, and all of a sudden it takes out Superman. Okay, did they announce that on the news when it fell in the water? I mean, how did you guys know?
I wonder what this bottle would do to Superman. It's green. Look,
He'd probably be real afraid of it.
that's why he ain't never flying into Ireland, bruh. And they're all drunk.
So what's a Marvel MCU character that you don't want to see no more?
Black Panther.
I agree. Captain Marvel. They just didn't bring it for me. Neither
Black
one.
Panther, Captain Marvel, or Captain Freedom. When he comes out, I don't think his movie will do too good.
I think it's going to do just right.
I think it'll make movies great again. But
Right.
he may be hard of hearing
Time.
from his right side, though. You never know.
Yeah, you gotta yell in that ear. You can whisper in the other though.
His helmet will have a dent on the right side where his ears at.
They'll be like Captain Freedom. You can't grab those ladies there.
Yeah.
You gotta grab them somewhere else. They frown on that.
But I'm trying to set them free.
Trying to free that freak.
Oh man, but yeah, I'm trying to think. But yeah, Black Panther and Captain Marvel. Which Captain Marvel, man, that could be awesome. That sucked. I don't like the Flash. Well, no, the Flash is DC, so let me take that one back. But I'm trying to look up over here. Everybody else I'd like to see again. Just those two I really don't care about.
I didn't hear you boo on that one, Matt.
Look, man, you can't hate on the DC universe just because some idiot's been writing their movies. I mean, how cool is Batman and Superman? I mean,
And when it came to comic books, I was much more into DC than what I ever was in Marvel.
Yeah, me too. I'll say this: I'd go ahead and give Batman and Superman a pass and just let them slide on into the Marvel universe. I would allow that.
But you know what Batman does better than any comic book hero?
Cash checks.
Catwoman.
You could take him completely out of DC, and he has his own.
Endanger orphans. No, sorry.
He has his own. Batman has his own universe. He doesn't need DC.
No, he don't.
Him. Because
You're
if
right.
you take Batman out of DC, DC's got nothing, and
Nothing.
they know.
Yeah, they know it. And you'd think they'd hire some people that know how to write some movies because, man, first off, I know Travis likes Ben Affleck as Batman, and he done a pretty good job, I will say.
He's a good actor all around.
And Ben Affleck's a very good actor, but I just did not like his version of Batman. I really for it.
Did you see in the Flash when he's been talking to Ben Affleck all through the movie, and then after he alters time, he went back and it was the dude from Batman 4, George Clooney.
Yeah. Yeah.
George Clooney sucked as Batman.
I'll go ahead and tell you. I like the first Batman with Michael Keaton. He was a great Batman. I hate Tim Burton. I think he's stupid. I think his movies are ridiculous. Listen, he had the who's who of actors, and then he gummied it up with a bunch of colors and bullshit. He had Jack Nicholson. He had Michael Keaton. It's the first in here. He had
Kim Basinger.
Danny DeVito. He had Christopher Walken, Michelle Pfeiffer, and you got Christopher Walken walking around looking like Skeletor before he died, and he's on meth. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if there's a cat outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, why, man? Why you got to do all this gay shit too? Why? I don't like it, man.
I liked all that stuff, man.
No,
I did too. I thought the first
they
two
could have made it.
films
It
were
wouldn't have
great.
hurt. It wouldn't have hurt the dude to be a little serious. All right, why so serious?
Well, he's just abstract,
Yeah, Well, if I took a dump on a plate, if my name's Vincent, that might be considered abstract if I'm from France, and I could sell it for art. But here in Athens, my name's Travis. I'm going to jail. It's not abstract. It's nuts.
Sir, this is the Western Sizzling. You can't.
Sir, we can't make steaks great again here. We can't do that.
I never was like the biggest fan of Tim Burton's abstractness, but I love Batman. I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And
I like Edward Scissorhands too, but it's a weird movie, man.
it is a weird movie.
And guess who he had in that movie? He had Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder, and Vincent Price. And he still made it stupid. Come on. God, man.
I think
people from the
Sleepy
golden
Hollow.
age of movies and make it retarded.
Sleepy Hollow was a good movie too from Burton.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Christopher
I'm a
Walken.
fan.
Yeah,
Hey, Christopher Walken in that one too.
He is.
He was the headless horseman.
No,
He was the
it's
Hessian.
It's Ichabod Crane walking
I
outside.
lost my head.
I can't hear. I can't see.
Travis does a really good. He does a really good.
That's
walk.
probably the
I'm-
best walking that I've heard other than professionals.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Pretty good.
It ain't the voice. It's just how he talks.
I need more cowbell.
What I need. I've got a fever. I need more cowbell.
I need more cowbell.
Cowbell, my life. Give me that cowbell.
Did you see
I got
that?
a.
Did you
Go
see
ahead.
Cooking with Walken? It was
my
a
God.
stand-up comedian, and it was Christopher Walken with the cooking show. It was, I'm going to use my knife.
and see his accent is, I like Christopher Walken. He's an awesome actor. But if you watch him in a movie called At Close Range, it came out in 1985.
Yeah, that's an awesome movie.
Okay, well, that was supposed to be in Tennessee, Williamson County, Tennessee. There's no guy from Tennessee talking like that.
It was still an awesome movie. I love that movie.
So where are you from, partner? I'm from South Nashville,
Well,
No,
and
we
so
don't know.
there's been several movies that's been made that's either been set in Tennessee or somebody has been going through Tennessee. And
Yeah.
if they and the whole thing is referencing Knoxville, right? Well, if you're from
Yeah.
Tennessee, you're not saying Knoxville, okay?
It's Knoxville.
You're saying Knoxville. And every movie that I've seen, it was Black Steak Moan was supposed to be in Monroe County, and over in Monroe County, and she was like, I have to go to Knoxville, and I'm like, there ain't nobody in Monroe County that's ever said Knoxville.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, there's no Maryville in Tennessee. That's Maryville, son.
Yeah, that's Maryville.
M-U-R-L, Merville.
Maryville, man. That's what I'm talking about. There was a town in Washington State called Marysville, and I was like, let's go to Marysville. They're like, what the hell did you just say? Marysville, man. Let's go.
There's a-
No.
There's a city in Indiana called Merrillville, M-E-R-Y-L, and I said, this sounds the same.
All right, I got a question for you guys. Matt,
All right.
you can be the first one to answer it.
Yeah.
Favorite scene in the entire set of movies? What's your favorite scene out of all of them?
I'm going to tell you, and it's my favorite scene of all time in the movie is when it's in Endgame and the Avengers are getting their ass beat by Thanos, and then Captain America grabs Mjolnir.
God,
yeah. I've never been in a theater before or since where everybody screamed and clapped and got up. I did too.
Listen,
We were so invested in that moment because
Yeah.
it was like, hell, I go on YouTube sometimes at work if I need to get hyped up about picking some groceries, and I look at that, I'm ready to go.
Man, I've seen that in the theater, and that has to be my favorite scene too. Bro, I stood up in front of my chair in the theater and screamed with my hands in the air. And dude, the entire theater done it, man. It was one of the most awesome moments I've seen. The only other time that I've been in a theater that's come close to that is when I went to the theater and watched Star Wars, whatever, Revenge of the Sith. It was the second movie of the last trip they made, whatever it was,
Yeah.
And when we were sitting there and the screen goes black and the Star Wars popped up on the screen, and the music starts, before the crawl starts, everybody stood up and started cheering when that started, and that was a pretty awesome moment. But it wasn't nothing compared to when that hammer slid in his hand. I'm talking about people went crazy, son. It was awesome.
You go on YouTube and watch the fan reactions to that in the theater, and that's exactly what I experienced, because one of the reasons I love the MCU, and this is like a sentimental thing to me, when the kids were coming up and family and everything was here, we would always go. That was our thing. We would go to the movies and we would watch the Avengers. We would watch those movies, and it become like a family thing that we did. And we would do it here. We'd have like marathons, on the Blu-rays. So that was a really big a family bonding moment just through those films, and they'll always be a big part of my life. Those films.
Well, that's what I was telling you when we first started talking about this. When Iron Man came out, what'd you say it was, Travis? 08, something like that? When Iron Man came out, came out in, I think, 2008, and I think Jace was 6 years old when it came out. I believe. I may
Travis,
be off.
you're muted.
It was 2008, and he was 4.
Okay, Travis knows more about my own kid. But anyhow, so.
Yeah, he was born September 2003. It came out before September, so he was 4.
Yeah, you're right. But anyhow, so that movie comes out, right? And so my son is 4 years old. And just like what Matt was talking about, as these movies came out, man, it became, hey, we're going to go watch the next Marvel movie, whatever. And in Endgame, when, Robert Downey Jr., you look over, he sacrifices himself to save humanity, it was kind of an emotional time because I'm an emotional guy anyhow, but when he snaps and it kills him, and then I look over and my son that was 4 is now, an 18-year-old man. That was a moment for me, what I'm talking about, because not only did Iron Man just die, it was kind of like I was watching my son's childhood die. Yeah. That was a deep, deep moment for me. It really was. Because man, you grow up, this is what your kids watch. This is the toys they played with, and and the video games they played, and as that character dies on screen, you realize, no, I don't have a child anymore. I have a young man, and that was a deep moment for me. It really was.
I remember going to Endgame, and the lines were so long. We went ahead and got our tickets, and we sat out on the tailgate of my truck, and I had bought pizza, and we sat there and ate pizza and waited for the movie to start to get in line, because man, the lines were like, God.
Oh, it was ridiculous, yeah.
So it was just, I remember Endgame just being such an event, because I remember walking out of Infinity War, and the way Infinity War ended, you're just like, oh my God, Endgame's going to be so good when it comes out next year. And it was. It didn't disappoint.
It was epic, bro. It was so epic.
Do you remember the first movie here locally that was more of an event, like that it just had a big old line that just led for miles, or at least around the building?
I remember the first one for me, and that was Back to the Future. That was the first one.
I don't remember it at the theater.
It was at the American Cinema in Athens.
Yeah.
And the line was so backed up, you couldn't get in there. And my mom was taking me to watch it. And when we finally got up there to buy a ticket, there was only one seat left.
Really?
And she bought a ticket, and they let me sit in her lap because I was a little youngin' then.
Yeah.
But they allowed me to sit in her lap and watch that movie. And I will never forget that till the day I die, because that's why Back to the Future, those movies have a soft spot in my heart these days, because that was something me and my mom done back in the day that was a kind of an awesome experience for me.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the first time that I ever experienced these big long waits and these sold out theater was Back to the Future.
So around here, like, I don't remember any line like just leading out the door and all that, except when Spider-Man come out. I don't remember it for Batman, and I went to go see Batman at the theater. But when Spider-Man come out with Tobey Maguire, it was at the Plaza Twin, and there was a line that went all the way down to Belk.
When Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out opening night, the line went all the way to Belk too.
Really? Okay. Yeah. That was probably 1990, I guess.
You couldn't beat those first three Spider-Man movies, man, that Sam Raimi did. They were just great. Now, I think when you look at movies and you look at sequels, usually sequels don't perform as well. But I think Spider-Man 2 was probably the best out of that trilogy.
Yeah, those were awesome movies. I haven't seen the Spider-Man trilogies that much.
But only one of them had the Macho Man in it.
Yeah,
where he was in that wrestling.
That was one with
You're
Tobey
not
Maguire.
going anywhere.
You're mine.
Shoot for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not going no
Oh,
place.
Yeah, let me tell you something.
He almost sounds like he should have been a porn star, man.
Action. Oh, yeah, been
It
waiting
sounds
for
like he
this
always
action
just got
all
done
day.
being constipated, man.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Could you
I
pass me
just
the
took
toilet
a big
paper?
dump here.
Yeah, brother, here's a
Speaking
toilet
of
paper.
that, you know what next week's show should be about? Should be wrestling.
We haven't done a wrestling show yet. Let's do that next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, man.
Are we gonna
let's-
keep it a certain generation? Because
No.
let's just go.
Oh, Lord.
Just right. Have you seen the Iron Claw yet? That movie?
I
Yeah,
have.
that's a good movie.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know that
They-
that one guy, the one that played Carrie Von Erich in that movie, do you know who his granddad is?
no.
The
You'll
actor?
know as soon as I tell you.
The
Yeah,
actor?
Yeah,
Uh,
because he looks almost just like him.
he was the guy that played Lip in
and Shameless,
Shameless, right?
yeah, Jeremy
I
Allen
ain't never
White.
seen Shameless.
The
Yeah,
Shame-
he's got 3 names though. Gene Wilder.
Really?
Is that right?
Look at his face. He looks just like. I mean, he looks just like him.
Who was was it Kerry Von Erich that became the Texas Tornado? Was that who it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
Did you guys know he only had one leg that whole time?
No, I didn't know
Well,
back then.
he was missing that foot. Yeah, I didn't know
You'd
that
never
back
known
then.
it, though. You'd never known it though, you know it.
No.
But I
he's-
tell you what, they kept talking about in the movie how good he was on the mic and all that, and I guess he was all right. But I've seen some videos, and all of those guys on the mic back then were goofy as crap, man.
Yeah, but man, it was awesome though. You wouldn't trade that era for nothing.
Well, but
'Cause They don't
before
do
he
that crap anymore, you know.
no, historically, chances are a lot of that was they had some liberty with it. The oldest brother, David Von Erich, was probably was actually the bigger star. He was the one they were going to put the NWA title on before he passed away in Japan. Kevin was, I mean, Kerry had the build, he had the body. Kevin was just, he was almost like Kurt Hennig. He was just a natural athlete. He was the most athletic of the bunch. It's almost like each one of the brothers got a little bit of something from the dad, but not all of them got all of it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, hey,
Their dad was a psycho, though, man. He put business first before anything.
they really depicted the dad as a really bad guy.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he was one of the original, sort of like, Nazi villains back in the day, Fritz von Erck with the claw and the American will fall to me and
The Iron Claw.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well,
But
hey,
he was
save
one
up
of
these stories. Save
Sorry,
these
sorry.
stories, and we'll get into it next week, man. I think we had I think we pretty much covered everything, Matt. You got anything else you want to cover?
No, man, I think we did good. I
I
think
got
Marvel
I
was
got
good.
one more question though
Go ahead.
about the MCU. So you had all the individual movies. Thor had his own movie, Captain America had his own movie. Everybody had their own movies. Plus, they had the Avenger movies, right? And I actually talked about this a little bit in the group chat last night, but I noticed it, I guess, the most whenever I watched Thor: Dark World. And in all these movies, the Avengers they ain't broke up yet by that time. I don't think they were still there. And Thor comes back and fights an entire war, or whatever for this movie, in London or whatever. And they wasn't one single Avenger that come helped his ass out. Now what's
You know why?
what's up? What's
Do you
up?
know, do you know why, Daniel?
Comic books.
This guy's, I guess he sucked or something. I don't
No,
know.
It's because the Avengers signed a contract that they would not fight Frenchmen, and you said London was full of French people.
Yeah, you're
That's
probably
why.
right.
Well, you got to think about like this. Growing up, comic books, you had your own titles like Thor and stuff like that. They just fought things by themselves. I mean, Iron
Yeah.
Man didn't have the Avengers in his comic books a whole lot either.
Yeah, the Avengers just never seem to show up in anybody's own individual movies. That they're over here getting the crap beat out of them, and everybody else is sitting at home watching TV. I mean,
Well, I think the reason they did that is because you're supposed to believe that these guys can do it all themselves. So when they all have to come together in order to beat one person, that's supposed to depict how strong this one person is.
That's pretty deep. You're probably right, Travis. That's a good way to look.
I buy that.
I'll take that for $1. Yeah.
And then Captain America, at the end of the movie or whatever, goes back and lives his entire life. Just fine. Screw all you guys. All you guys is out here fighting and dying and stuff. I'm just going to go back and relive my life with the chick that I wanted.
And this chick dance with her.
Like what? That's a douche move, man.
Go ahead, Matt.
68 years old. He can't retire.
Or the next TV show that's coming out on Disney is rumored to be the show where Captain America goes back and puts the stones back in place.
Yeah.
So
that's also when he hooks up with Peggy.
So that's what he was doing when he went back in time, was actually putting the stones back in place, right?
Yeah.
And he had to be really careful when he did that, or else he would alter something else and then screw something else.
That's coming out, or the show that's rumored that's coming, Chris Evans is going to reprise Captain America's role, and it's going to show him going into each episode's going to be a different stone that he has to put back.
Yeah, because they said what would seem like instantaneous here could have took him, 10 or 15 years to do as he was doing it, but in this timeline, it would have seemed like the snap of a finger, but there's no telling how long it actually took him to do it,
Right.
I'm ready to see Deadpool, Wolverine. I'm ready to see Captain America, Brave New World in February. I think Marvel's starting to get into a better direction, but you got to get rid of stuff like the Eternals and all this card stuff, because I don't care about the mid-card stuff. The characters have that richness like the first three phases do.
Give us what we want, baby. Just give us what we want, man. We don't need no lightweight stuff. We want to watch the heavyweight fights. That's it.
I think is going to be I think he's going to factor into a lot of the MCU stuff from here on out for at least several movies. I think he's radically going to change a lot of stuff.
Speaking of the heavy hitters, because Guardians 3, one of the things a lot of people complain about is they kind of neutered Adam Warlock, who in the comics was the hero of what would have been Endgame. He was the one that actually came down and just punk slapped Thanos across time and space.
Yeah.
But what about, there's talk that they've tried to do it for a while, but because the character is so OP, even in the comics, he would show up right at the end, because if he was part of the initial charge, and I'm talking about the Sentinel or Sentry. If he showed up, it was over, because he was like Superman on freaking steroids. Like one of the comics, he actually takes Ares, the Greek god of war, and literally just rips him in half. And it's one of the most visceral panels I've ever seen.
Mhm.
So they're actually talking about doing a movie off of him, but he's it's like Superman with hyper telekinetic powers and energy, and I mean he's just it's almost like a comic book Mark.
You're talking about Black Adam, right?
No, this guy would take Superman, and the way the Sentry was drawn up as far as his power base, he would take Superman and Black Adam and just beat them both with one hand.
He's called the Sentry?
The Sentry, yeah.
Huh. I don't know nothing about him. I'll check him out.
Yeah, he's like wasn't he like in a yellow suit?
Yeah. His whole backstory is Doctor Strange actually mind wipes him, because, spoiler alert, he's got like a dual personality. There's like an evil side to him that comes out that has all of his powers as well, but it's like he's like a yin and yang. But he wakes up one day and remembers that he used to be the Sentinel, or he used to be the Sentry, and like Doctor Strange wiped his mind. But I mean, he was like super insanely OP. Think, if you want to do a DC comparison, take the Spectre and take Superman and just kind of. I mean,
you said
I've never heard
Sentinel,
this guy.
like the Sylvester Stallone guy, like, yo, I'm here to stop crying.
better than Cobra, I guess.
Hey, I liked Cobra though.
Cobra's a good movie.
I wanted the car. I just wanted the car.
Oh,
I would have been happy with the car. That was a nice
49.
First, I think that's the first. Yeah, I think that's the first movie I ever saw where they actually had a laser sight.
And so the Night Stalker in that movie actually got killed by the Terminator. In Terminator 1, he was part of Bill Paxton's little crew.
Yeah.
And for him to be so tough, in Cobra, you've already seen him get punked out by the Terminator.
He called Sylvester Stallone a pig 287 times the last 30 seconds of his life in that movie.
You got to take me in. You got to take
we
me
get
in,
it.
pig.
He's slobbering out of his mouth and stuff.
The court is civilized, isn't it, pig?
We get it. You worship the devil and you talk in heavy metal and you got to slobber and stuff and call the cops pigs. We got it, bro. We got it. Just move on. 1986. Grow up, man.
Man, I think that's a good way to end it. It's been a good one. Anybody else have anything to say?
I've got one more thing to say. We ended it again with something Travis said at the end.
He always.
I don't say much, but it's got to be the last one.
Well, join us next week when we're going to talk about some wrestling, baby. Praise God.
Wrestling.
All right, this is the Do Bash. We out. See you next week.